Welcome back to the Dr. Michael Show. Approximately 20.9 million American adults, or about, I would say, 9.5% of the U.S. population aged 18 or older in any given year, have a mood disorder. Major depressive disorder is the leading cause of disability in the U.S. for ages 15 to 44. You have anxiety disorders, which then include things like panic disorder, obsessive compulsive, traumatic stress, generalized anxiety disorders, and various kind of phobias. So all of that is grouped in there. Approximately 40 million American adults ages 18 and older, or about, again, 18.1% of people in this age group in a given year have an anxiety disorder. We're told that depression is actually due to a low serotonin level, and a huge class of meds called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRI for short. These are a class of compounds typically used as antidepressants in the treatment then of things like depression, anxiety, personality disorders, and so on. These SSRIs are believed to increase the extracellular level of the neurotransmitter serotonin by inhibiting then actually the reuptake of this neurotransmitter into what's called the presynaptic gap or presynaptic cell. And actually what it is that you have a little gap between the nerve cells, and you have these neurotransmitters that bridge this gap, and that's where serotonin works. And when it then is moved from one location to the other, it gets bound. So this is just preventing it then from being then reabsorbed. And that increases then the level of serotonin then in this synaptic cleft, or in this gap in between. And that makes it more available then for usage later on. You had then two different meta-analysis of clinical trials that was published in 2008 and also 2011. And they found that in mild and moderate depression, the effect of these SSRIs is small or none compared to the placebo, while in very severe depression, the effect of these are between relatively small and sometimes it can actually be substantial. This 2008 meta-analysis combined actually 35 clinical trials that were then submitted to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, before licensing of the 4 newer SSRI antidepressants. The authors of these studies, they attributed the relationship between the severity and the efficacy to a reduction of the placebo effect in several depressed patients, rather than an increase in the effect of the medication. So they were looking at it as more of a placebo effect rather than the actual medication itself. So this far, there never has been a single study in humans that actually validate the theory of low serotonin in depression. Low levels are found in a minority of patients, and also an antidepressant marketed as Stablon, which increases the reuptake of serotonin, which then reducing then serotonin activity, and appears to be equally effective as those that decrease it or have no effect on it at all. So manipulating then with the serotonin levels do not consistently result in either a depressive syndrome or an improvement in the depression. So antidepressants of all category, they seem to work about the same regardless of their pursued mechanism of action, with about 73% of the response unrelated to pharmacologic activity. So in short, the expectation of relief and subsequent change in symptoms experienced by responders is related then to the perception of the side effects. So this analysis suggests that antidepressants may only have about 10% efficacy above and beyond the placebo effect. So when you also then consider the suppression then of the negative studies, the permission of sedatives in the trials, or replacement where they remove non-responders in the trial, or they also have the allowance of the placebo washout by all these pharmaceutical companies, you may start to wonder, and also you may start to worry that you've been sold then just a large bill of goods. So when inefficacy, long-term risks, and also increase in suicide and violent behaviors, all of those are taken into account, it is actually a marvel to observe the star power of these medications. Some of the most commonly prescribed antidepressants include Zoloft, Celexa, Prozac, and Lexapro. Interestingly enough, in Germany, the most commonly prescribed antidepressant is a concentrated extract of the herb St. John's wort. So why do we get anxiety and depression? Well, I look upon these mood disorders as the brain's inflammatory signal. When we have inflammation in a muscle or a joint, we get a pain signal. When there is inflammation in the brain, we're depressed, anxious, or develop some other mood or mental disorder. After this, we'll be right back.